Good morning. Good morning,
Morning.
everyone.
Good morning.
Morning. Guys, let me just change.
Yes.
I have some options that are kind of hard to change before the meeting. We had some issues the other day. So I'm just changing quickly. All right. Just in case we have to do any screen sharing, that was an issue yesterday, and we discovered that I needed to make changes at my end. Well, good morning again. And let me get a couple things taken care of before we move into more animation today. You know, one thing that I want to share with you that I only just learned about, so it's rather late notice. I don't know if anyone was interested in the grade changing options from last semester. Um, so I don't have a lot to say about this, so I just want to mention a couple things. And what I'm going to do, let me just turn this off. What I'd like to do is screen share something unusual. This is an email that I just got, and then you guys can let me know if any of you need more information about this. I'm hoping you got the same email in your BMCC email. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay, let's see. Let's move this over for a minute. This email that I got here is about the NC, the no credit versus credit grade option from last semester. I really don't know if anyone in my class needed it. I'm sure maybe some of the people who are taking the class via YouTube would be interested in this. So I'm not quite sure how to handle it because the letter only arrived, as you could see, about 5 minutes ago. The deadline to change a failing grade to a no credit grade is tomorrow, right? That's June 25th. That's the deadline. So I imagine that anyone who was in that kind of situation already took care of it. It would be, frankly, kind of negligent not to have pursued it. If anyone did get an F last semester, there's a really good chance that it wasn't your fault at all because it was the weirdest semester ever. I know a few people in this class, for example, just got their computers. So what did they do in the middle of last semester? So I don't have a lot to say about it, but basically the idea is if you got an F last semester because of something completely out of your control that was related to us going online unexpectedly or COVID in any way, shape, or form, I would take the no credit option. And I told all my students last semester, especially those that didn't pass, that they probably should take advantage of it. I am fairly certain that they would have sent this email to you also. And all I want to say right now is that there is going to be a meeting today. Not one of those meetings you sit at, it's drop-in. You just click Zoom, you drop in and say, oh, look, I have a question about it. So our class ends at 12, which means that people would still have time right after class to drop into that Zoom and, excuse me, and ask whether it's for you. But there's also going to be one tomorrow between 4 and 7 at night. So that's more flexible. One would have to choose one of these two dates and then click this little thing here at that time, I imagine, at the time you're choosing, and that'll get you into the Zoom meeting at that particular time. So you know what I think we probably should do as a group? I'm going to leave this open for now. At noon, this is the first issue I'd like to address. Anyone who needs me to forward that email, maybe we could take care of it really quickly, right, at noon, right? So again, don't be embarrassed about this. By the way, your own tour guide, when I learned all of this, I didn't have a computer. So I had to commute to my school endlessly and use their lab, which makes perfect sense, right? I don't know what I would have done in those days if the labs had closed due to a pandemic, right? So don't be embarrassed at all. Talk to me bluntly at noon. You may want to check to see if you got that email at that time in your BMCC email, so we don't go through jumping through hoops, so I can send it to you. But if you didn't get it and you want it, I'll send it to you. Okay, so again, don't be shy. Chat me. There's ways to chat me privately, or just talk to me at noon. All right, is everybody okay? Let me get to our handout then. Actually, one thing that I want to mention to you is, so today is Wednesday. Class ends a week from tomorrow, right? So that basically means we've got today, we've got 5 days after today, right? So it's going to happen fast. So one thing what I want to mention right now is that basically means that the final is going to take place next week, and I'll be announcing details about it early. So I've been looking over what I typically, what my choices are. Every semester is not identical. They're not direct mirror images. They're close. So I always figure out toward the end of the semester, how do I want to reallot time? The way I'm thinking right now is I think I'd like to spend 2 classes together on the final. One maybe where I do more demonstrations regarding the final project, and maybe one where people could work while I'm available to ask immediate questions. Or we had some luck with screen sharing after a bit of effort yesterday, where we could screen share if someone needs a hand. I want to give you a heads up. So basically, this is what I'm saying. The skills we learned yesterday and the skills we're going to learn today are warm-ups. Probably tomorrow, we're going to start skills close. Oh, no, yeah, tomorrow. We're going to start some skills that are closer to what you're going to need for the actual final project. It's not appropriate to go into details right now, but what it's going to be is you're going to get a choice of a number of phrases. Think of things like too many cooks spoil the broth, right? So that's text. Too many cooks spoil the broth. 6 words. When you're watching TV and you see text come out, it's not the same as a magazine where you're just looking at the text. On commercials, it moves, and that's called Kinetic Type. So the last classes involving Adobe Animate are going to be Kinetic Type. I'll be very, very thorough, as I always try to be. By then, I'll hopefully help everyone be confident. I have an exercise to help us warm up. Nothing to fear, right? The only thing is, those of you who come live all the time, please continue doing that next week. It's going to probably be the best way to deal with the final project in a confident way. People taking it on YouTube, as you already know, it's all going to be online. I got to tell you something. I check the number of views the videos get on YouTube and compare it to the number of students in the class. So if 10 of you show up and then 10 people watch it on YouTube, I'm thinking, okay, it looks like everybody was present. Right now, the 7 of you, right? So I'm always checking that. So anyway, you guys in YouTube, don't go skipping stuff. You know what I mean? There's not going to be any charity grades. And here's the thing I want to say to everybody, because you all matter to me, YouTube or not, people are doing what they can to get an education. There isn't going to be the full week that I usually give for projects. I actually wrote my director today to ask him what the grading deadline is. During the usual semesters, it's 2 days after the final class, which would mean that would fall on a weekend, which would mean I don't have time to give people extra time. So it's going to be a little tighter than usual, not a lot. Nothing to fear, as I said, just stay alert as you have been. Folks, let me get to today's handout. Hey, it's a small group today. Oh gosh, it's a little larger than people are showing up all at once. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 17 people. That's a big chunk of the class, actually. Is my math weird? 3,
One of those isn't real.
14 people, it looks like. Yeah. Any case, today's more animation. We are going to continue with a little bit of review from yesterday, and we're going to add stuff. One thing that I want to say to all of you, those of you who enjoy animation for any reason, right, there's a lot of flavors. And I'm not talking about as a viewer. One person says, well, I only like mature animation, and I would love to recommend movies for people who want movies made for adults. I don't mean anything, inappropriate. I just mean mature, thinking stuff. Like an adult novel, except animated. I know others also have strong feelings about anime, etc. Some people in here who are animation majors might want to work, do animation for children. I personally was a huge fan of Little Bill back in the past. When I had a kid that was that age. By the way, it was done in this program, in the parent of this program, coincidentally. No, I'm talking about flavors of how you execute it. So yesterday we started with frame by frame animation. And it's not going to go away for a long time. But what it's doing now is it's mixing with other things. There's certain things that if I'm doing a 2D animation of someone doing this with their hand, that's just, there's no way the computer's going to figure that out. I'm literally going to have to draw this, 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 this. It's going to take me 6-7 frames. You know, if I want them to do it fast, I could probably cheat a lot. I could do it this way, maybe one drawing in the middle, and then one of the complete shape. And the eye is going to, you know, be rather convincing that I went through the whole thing. So that's frame by frame. Today, I want to do some frame by frame, but I want to add one type of tweening. Tweening is when the computer helps a lot, when you're designating key moments, and the computer figures out what's in the middle. And there's several ways to achieve that. Let's take a look at the handout together, though. Make sure I didn't forget anything. So folks, since this is coming to a close, and my guess is I'm going to have to be grading next weekend, there is a chance that everything late will be cut off next Friday. A very strong chance. So if you're behind on anything, please keep that in mind. I'm not going to give extensions. I don't expect to give any extensions this semester, except for the best of reasons. So if you've not already met these three, please do it. The video project's due tomorrow. Nobody's late on that. A lot of people are early, but nobody's late on the video project. All right. Listen, before I race forward, does anybody have any questions about homework? Didn't think so. We've been pretty thorough, but remember, you could always email me if you think of something, or chat me during class. All right. All right, we're using Animate again, Adobe Animate, part of CC. Oh yeah, there was something I told you I was going to look up, which I did. When does Creative Cloud's free subscription end? The date is July 6th, right? July 6th, it's over. This class is over July 2nd, so that didn't affect us in any way, right?
So after July 6th, we can't use the software anymore unless we pay?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
You know, Jessica, the thing that's interesting is I was shocked that Adobe even did that. You know, I never saw them as an activist company in any way. They were busy.
They don't have free software anywhere? You have to pay for everything?
Everything. Yeah, Adobe's a commercial company. They're like, you know, DuPont for graphics, or I don't know, whoever you could think of, that's Sony or something. They're one of these mega companies, and they literally rule the graphics world. But you know what they did was not only kind, but it was also really smart. Look how much fun you guys had. So some of you guys are actually figuring out what you're going to do in the future, knowing you're going to have to pay for their tools. You know, the thing about them that I do like is when I started this, just to buy Photoshop alone was something like $400 or $500, I think.
That's all you were getting was Photoshop. You had to buy each individual license.
That's right. And then you wanted another one. You wanted Adobe Illustrator, cost as much. People were just going broke. They always had student deals, you know, like discounts for students, but it was never free. And when the Creative Cloud idea came out, where they took their most popular programs and lumped them into Creative Cloud, it got substantially cheaper. And I want to explain that. Even if it's $20 a month, which is the most I think it would be for you, it's a year contract, so you're really paying $240. So that's for all the programs, though. You know, so if a person,
bad for all the programs together.
That's right. Not everything Adobe sells, but everything anybody ever talks about. Photoshop and, you know, and Illustrator. And, I haven't used Audition, that's their audio program. Premiere, which we've used. Say just those three programs alone. Even that, it really is a tremendous bargain considering what it used to cost. But, you know, I'm telling you, I have students who couch surf, you know, because they can't afford rent, but they want an education. And that's pretty heroic. They're going to have great stories to tell their grandchildren. But, you know, my grandfather slept in graveyards because the government chased him out of where we come from. And so he wouldn't get caught and killed. He slept in graveyards. It's a great story. He came here, he was dirt broke. My family, my father was dirt broke too. And we rose up. You know, my dad actually in the end employed 75 people and invited the union into his own company. And we were from the projects. So, you know, any of you who are couch surfing right now, you know, or borrowing, you know, equipment or whatever, you're a hero, you know, make it happen. Tell a great story when you get older, be inspiring. I'm inspired. So $20 a month isn't so cheap for some people at this moment in time, but you get a lot for it, I will say that. So guys, listen, I'm gonna drop that subject for now. We could talk a little bit about that toward the end of the class, because I know some of you are gonna probably go that direction. Whatever you do though, be sure you get the student price. It's much less than it is for people out of school. And you'll get to keep that at least for the year, you know, from the date you sign on. I really don't know what the full price is right now. So there you have it. Let me get back to what's on the table right now. So yesterday we did discuss a little bit the difference of additive drawing, which Adobe Animate's capable of doing. And we discovered that colors that are the same, two different objects of the same exact color will fuse when they touch. They become one object. So it becomes a way of drawing to assemble things. We also discovered that, oh, this should be, I updated this, there's a spelling error. I hate that kind of thing. I found so many spelling errors the last few days. You know, I could swear I updated my fixes. All right, none of you guys care about it. I do though. Subtractive is supposed to say. If you overlap a yellow object, for example, with a red one, and then drag the red one away, you just subtracted. You just took a piece off. So we're gonna go over that. I wanna go over frame by frame animation. I didn't include the link to Gertie the dinosaur. It was on yesterday's handout. Gertie the dinosaur being rather inspiring to me in a lot of ways, because it looks so professional, even though nothing had predated it. You know, I want to be honest, at least not honest, I want to be like fair. Winsor McCay must have done other animations that stunk. They didn't even have a name yet. The word animation didn't exist. So I'm sure he didn't show them to anybody. And then he whipped out Gertie the dinosaur and he's like, holy cow, this could be an industry practically, and released it. And, you know, made a big deal out of it. As you could see, there were movies of him in his tuxedo showing off his animation. But as far as history has it, it's the earliest animation that anybody can find, Gertie the dinosaur, and he did draw every single frame. You know, I want to mention to you that, you know what, I'm going to do something real quick. I don't want to spend any time on this. I just want to, since I have access to it, I want to show you guys something fast. Then we're going to jump in. This is yesterday's handouts, and don't get confused. I'm just using it to get quickly to Gertie. I want to stop halfway through. 1 second. I don't need the sound today. All right, let me just pause this here. Do you see the landscape behind her? Mm-hmm. Like really, as early as somebody asked about cell animation the other day, someone who clearly knows something about animation. In cell animation, I did some of that when I was really very young. I'm talking the 1970s. You get these plastic sheets. You know, the paint is applied to the plastic sheets. And think of them as layers in Photoshop. In this situation, even earlier than the 70s, you would have done the whole landscape on one plastic sheet because it doesn't change. You know, these rocks are still the entire animation. So they would have been run on one layer. Gertie would have had a layer. This little thing here moved, so that would also have been on yet a separate cell, you know. But mostly it's her. The thing about this really old one is everything's moving around because he didn't do it that way. You know, no one had thought of it yet or figured out a way to do it. So he actually literally had to redraw the same landscape over and over again through the whole animation. Incredibly tedious. All right. Moment. Yeah. All right, let me just get to today's handout. So layers. I want to do some layers today because that's really what Winsor McCay needed to speed up his workflow was layers, right? And you know about layers and you know about tracks, so you've got some experience with that kind of concept. I really want to get to shape tweening today just to introduce what tweening is, which kind of dominated a lot of animation once that came out. That's very computer assisted. All right, let me put all this aside. And I want to make a small suggestion today. This is only a suggestion. It really isn't critical. You might want to make a folder for each animation. You know, it really just makes more sense. It's not like HTML where anything's going to break. Animation doesn't work that way, at least not Adobe Animate. Even if I brought in photos, I could delete the photos afterwards from wherever they came, and the animation still works. Same thing for sound. So it's not as picky about folders, but I do like to keep my original file together with my movies and my GIF copies, all the exports. I'm going to make a folder, you know? So I'm going to do that. It's an option. I'm going to just make a folder for today. I'm calling mine MMP100 underscore and today's date, which is June 24th, 6-24-20. So I'm going to be saving everything into this folder today. I'm going to leave it out as I'm in the habit of doing, even though, as I pointed out, it really isn't critical. Not in this one subject. It's really not. All right, let's open Animate. Where'd my Animate go? My Animate I didn't bring Animate down there yet. And I don't even have my little desktop doohickey. So I'm just going to search Creative Cloud. It's because I updated it and everything went wonky on me. No big deal. Just going to search Creative Cloud then. They've been updating this program every couple of months. It's really restless. And that's one of the great things about getting a subscription. In the past, it was always a big deal when there was an upgrade. Like, how do you even get it? What do I have to pay for the upgrade? Now you don't pay anything for the upgrade during the year of your subscription. So I'm in Adobe Animate now. You've noticed I almost never use these big splash screens. I could even put it away. I'm going to go to the File menu and do it from there. I don't need this. I like clean up after myself. Just make sure that you're in Animate. File menu, New. Once you're in Adobe Animate, you'll see it up here. Go to the File menu and choose New. All right, folks. We are going to do a 640 by 480 pixel document. So here we go. On the right side, I'm ignoring these. You know, don't be confused. These are just shortcuts. They don't limit you in any way. I don't even use them personally. So I'd like you to come to the width field, type in 640. It might be there from yesterday. Type in a height of 480. This is what we want today. It's a little small, but it would fit neatly on a website. Also won't stress out your computer as much. The frame rate is 24 frames a second. You know, don't get confused by the zeros. It's just 24, you know. Then ActionScript 3 is the platform type. I don't want to make any speeches about it. This is the standard nowadays. And let's just click Create. I do want to correct one thing I just said. The size isn't standard. There really isn't a standard size at this moment. There's a lot of options. All right, is everybody looking at Adobe Animate? Folks, let's just orient ourselves quickly, and if anybody is here for the first time, pay extra close attention. On the left is the toolbar, no surprise. The middle is the stage. The right side, the way you're looking at my screen, has a bunch of things, but the one that I want most is this one called Properties, right? I'm going to go over this right side in a minute. The bottom is the timeline, and we're going to spend a lot of time down here. I would like everybody to join me, though, by going to the window menu for a moment to Workspaces. Now, I want you to take a look. A lot of these choices are not going to work for us today. I'm going to give you a choice, though, right? Only 2 of these are suitable right now. Either small screen, which does stuff like close your properties palette, so you have to come here and get it. So if your screen's big enough, I don't think I would choose small screen. It's not going to be a big difference, and you could let me know if I'm wrong. I really don't mind. Or Essentials. This is the only 2 that are going to work well today. Small screen or Essentials did well for us yesterday. So I'm going to Essentials. Window menu, Workspace. I'm going to use Essentials because my screen's big enough for it, and I could see my properties palette, which I'm going to use a lot. Everybody okay? So folks, remember when you know, I understand people turning their mics off, air conditioning, noise, you know, whatever. Just turn your mic on at any point in time. Sometimes I'm not looking at you, so if you're trying to get my attention, I don't see. Zoom takes up a lot of space. You know, I know it has different sizes, but I'm going to put it aside right now. Let's go over how to get the artwork down. And I do want to say something rather quickly. So, you know, by just coincidence, these two people who do most of the Google animations live a few blocks from me. And we got a little bit friendly. It's a couple, and they're both animators, and they do all the little Google animations that you see. And what's interesting about that is they don't do the drawings. I don't think they have anything to do with the concept at all. Google sends them the artwork. So today, you know, someone's going to open a violin case, pick up a violin, and play a couple notes. That's the whole animation. So they send them all the parts. You know, and the question becomes, where did they draw those parts? So they never showed me those files, but I'm going to guess that they come from Adobe Illustrator, because Adobe Illustrator art gets along incredibly well with Adobe Animate. They have many of the same tools. The thing is, Adobe Animate now draws so well that I think a lot of people are doing all the artwork right here. That's what we're going to do. Let's go over some stuff from yesterday. Can everybody grab the rectangle tool? Now, I want to remind you that there's two ways to choose a color before you draw your rectangle. At the bottom of the toolbar, there's this box here, which is currently pink. The one behind it that looks like a picture frame, I don't want any color for that one. So if you have a color here, I'd like you to click that one and choose this. That means no color. The fill color you can click on anytime you want and change it. You notice, and you may remember, that on the right side, the properties palette, the all-powerful properties palette, has the same two features. Mysteriously, sometimes only one of them has those features. So I like to point out both. All right, if you've got the rectangle and you chose yourself a fill color, today, this is what I'm looking for. I want a horizontal beam. I'd like you to eyeball one not far beneath it. That's pretty much the same. Now I want to make a letter I out of this. Now, if you made a mistake and put a stroke around one, this will not work, right? The stroke is going to break this little demo. So as long as you did a fill color alone, you could Command Z a couple times. Stroke box should look like this. Then you go inside either one and overlap them. Don't do this, right? Because, you know, if you even miss one pixel, this isn't going to work. So I prefer to just flat out overlap them. We discovered yesterday that this becomes an additive object. It is now one single object. So to prove it to yourself, or I should say to test it, get the black arrow next. Now, if this is one object, you should be able to click anywhere on it and see little dots all over it, which means it's currently selected. If the object's selected, you could only do three things that come to mind. You could move it, you could change its color, or you could delete it. So I'm going to ask you to move it, and then I'm going to ask you to change its color. And you can go right to either of the two fill boxes that we discussed to change its color. Now look, don't be shy. Some of you guys just woke up. That's all right. I used to count on the subway to wake you up. And some people, I've had students take my class, they're still holding on to their pillow. No teddy bears yet. I think people stash the teddy bears before they get on Zoom. Is it working? All right, cool. So the thing that's more interesting to me, though, is how the edges behave. And one thing we saw yesterday, the corners have an important designation. The corners actually have hidden anchors. Now, folks, I would love to teach you guys how to use Adobe Illustrator. It's one of my favorite programs, and I've taught it for years. Both programs have anchor points. So I want to just touch a couple topics together, right? Let's be a little frugal about this so we can get to the new material. If your object has little dots on it, please click off of the object with the black arrow. Now, the corner points When you approach them, they get this odd little symbol. But if you go too far, you select the object again, and you'll have to click out. So please be careful, get right up to a corner, any corner, and press and drag it. Now, we discovered yesterday that you could do that with any shape. But this shape, which was originally 3 shapes, now has anchors in new spots. Where the 2 shapes overlap, it's got 1 anchor now. So there's any number of things that you could do with this knowledge. Now, I want to mention one more thing before we get involved with curves or anything else. The corners behave exactly this way. And I just want to remind you, because there may be a couple Illustrator users in here or people heading in that direction. I'd like you to go back to the toolbar. And I'm hoping that you see a little black triangle hidden in the corner of your selection tool. Now, that means you could press on it to find its partner, the sub-selection tool. Now, I do believe yesterday we discovered something, that if you were in the wrong workspace, like Basic, it doesn't show you those tools. So this is just too basic. So I'm going to leave that. I want to double check that Small Screen has it. Small Screen has what we need, as well as the workspace that I'm using today called Essentials. So what I'm basically asking you to do is press that tool and get the white one. With the white one, you do have to click the edge. Clicking inside does nothing. So you just click the edge. And what you should be seeing is a pale bluish line with tiny boxes in all the corners. These boxes are the anchor points. I want to say something to anyone going into any kind of graphics. You have to learn about anchor points at some point. Every program in graphics has some kind of use of anchor points. And you know, I really don't want to do the boring stuff today. I'm kind of tired of lecturing. I just want to like make stuff with you. And I know most of you feel the same. But I just have to say a little bit about anchor points. When you hear the term vector graphics, they mean a program that uses anchor points mostly. That means Adobe Animate is a vector graphics program. Adobe Illustrator is a vector graphics program. Vectors to a mathematician simply means where 2 lines meet. In math, this is a vector. But for artists, vectors are really just anchor points. Photoshop has them, but it doesn't depend on them. It's called raster. So let me just simplify something. Vector means anchor point driven. Raster means pixel driven. Do you remember the lasso tool? Right? In Photoshop, you couldn't just click a thing and get the whole thing selected. You had to figure it out yourself. You have to sort of lasso around those pixels. So graphic designers have an old rule. You kind of have to master one of each. One raster program, let's face it, that's Photoshop, because it's the ruler. You know, one vector program for people who really want, you know, graphic muscles, and I would recommend Illustrator in most cases. But talking animation, this would be probably the one, Adobe Animate. So with the wide arrow, though, we learned a couple things yesterday. You can move the same anchors, but there's really no thrill in it. What's its real claim to fame then? Can we switch back to the black one? I want you to make one curve, right? So in other words, don't go curving everything. Choose a side with the black arrow, go right up to the edge of it and curve it. You can go in concave or you can go out convex. It's up to you. So the black arrow did that. Why do we need the white one? You know what? I'm not sure you do. But if you're very detailed or your client needs detailed work, it's going to be about the white arrow. So let's switch to the white arrow for a minute. Switch over to the white arrow. You remember the white arrow gets activated by clicking an edge. What I really want you to see, though, doesn't show up automatically like it would in Illustrator. You have to click one of the 2 anchors next to your curve. Either one is fine. This is where it gets interesting. And this is where hardcore illustration, vector illustration, gets involved. This handle, sometimes called the direction line, controls the direction of a curve and more. So you very carefully get the end of this handle to alter the curve. And it could do all kinds of things that the black arrow couldn't really do because it's so specific. Every curve has two handles, one on the left, one on the right. And each one has control of, you might say, half of the curve. So the main premise is sort of like this. And by the way, I want to say something. You're not going to need this in my class, right? This is really just sort of vector literacy for a minute. Just expose people to the idea. Some of you are going to want to go further, going to need to go further. Others will not. So I just want to get a taste, one more taste of it. There's two things about these handles that matter. One is how long it is, as you can see. And that's how steep your curve is. So if this is somebody's nose, very shallow curve on a nose, really big kind of curve on a nose, right? For example. The other thing is not length, it's direction. So wherever you point that handle affects where the curve points. So the way the game is played is you usually need both handles, one on each side of a curve to get exactly what you want. Here's my advice to all of you, even people going into animation. This school does not have an illustration department. But if they did, I'd say something to the illustrators. Use the black arrow while you're animating, unless you're in trouble. You know, if you just can't get what you want, switch to the white one. Does anybody have any questions about this so far? We're going to be all about motion, and when we get to Kinetic Type, we're not doing the drawings. We're going to pick fonts so that every letter is sort of beautiful already. It's one of the reasons why it's so popular. Every commercial and all over YouTube. You can't believe how good people are with moving type. You know, Kinetic Type. Anyway, we don't have time to look at it today, so I want to do. All right, let's leave that white arrow. We're not coming back to it today, so I want to get back to the black one. Now, for a moment though, let's switch tools. I'd like you to get the oval tool, and I want to remind you not to use the one called oval primitive. It's got a little line inside of it, just the plain old oval. And I'm going to ask you to pick a different color. Overlap your object. I'm going to do this quickly since we did it yesterday. My only argument is objects of the same color join, but objects of different colors don't. They take bites out of each other. They remove the pixels that used to be there. So my red circle here removed those kind of greenish, yellow-greenish pixels beneath it. I'd like you to get your black arrow after you've drawn your ovals and move the ovals away. I don't need them, so you could even delete them. You could press them and delete them, or you could drag them out. So one of my main points, in a sense, is I could very quickly make myself a, a Swiss cheese. You know, because we all know what a slice of Swiss cheese looks like. Now, maybe we don't, because it got really expensive. When you were young, it was a cheap cheese, but it's not anymore. I don't know why. And you could see where this is going to go. So I got to say, like, this would just be really hard to draw without this feature. You know, even in drawing programs, people are going to look for ways to do something like that. Okay. Enough drawing. I want to move into some animation together. So yesterday we made the ball collapse, right? And I want to do that demo, actually exercise together one more time. And then I want to do something a little bit harder that's also based on frame by frame logic. So I just want to say something about the ball thing. Animators in the room, or multimedia people who want to include animation in their tool belt. Even video people, for example, who want to have that freedom to add animation in video. Frame by frame is good to know. And the ball deflating exercise is so good that if you did it once a day for like a month, by the end of the month, you would really get it. And it only takes a few minutes. So let's do it one more time. Now, I want you to notice something before we get started. Can everybody clear your screen? And if you got a lot of stuff, just do Command A or Control A it'll select everything and press delete. Now, when the screen is clear, absolutely empty, I want you to look at the bottom at the timeline. And you see all these frames. I want to remind you that there's a little feature down there that's sometimes hard to find on laptops. And this really drives me a little crazy. It's not even an urgent feature because it's only been around for about a year. But if you could find it, at the very bottom right is a slider that lets you zoom in on those frames. You know, at school, it'll be on very big screens right now. This right here. I'm doing this very odd cheat of just expanding my entire program to find it and then dragging it around. But that's not what's important, folks. Don't get stuck on it. I want you to look at frame 1. Frame 1 has a hollow keyframe. Over the next couple classes, we're going to be focusing more and more on what a keyframe actually is. But the one thing I need to say now is, you can only draw if you see a keyframe. And right now it's hollow, or white, gray technically on my screen, right? White. As soon as you draw in that moment in time, represented by the keyframe, it's going to go black. So let's get the oval tool. And I want you to pick a color. I'm going with very light colors because it helps me to show you anchor points, etc. And I want a big oval right here. I actually want a perfect circle. So I'm going to be holding down Shift to help. This way, no matter what I do, it's a perfect circle. I want something pretty big. If necessary, get the black arrow to select it, move it into place, or if you like, change your fill. Then please click off of it. So there's no little dots. It's not selected. So of course you look down at the timeline and the keyframe turned black. That means somebody lives there. You know when you get mail and it says occupant instead of your name? This always makes me think of that. This keyframe has an occupant. Folks heavy into animation, you're going to need a lot of layers. We're going to get started with layers today, right? To make sure things don't merge when you don't want them to, right? The merging we were playing with, the additive approach, only happens on one layer. So what we need right now is to copy the keyframe, which Winsor McKay couldn't do, right? Just copy that artwork so we don't have to redraw it, and then alter it so that the thing runs out of air, right? So I want to remind you of a few things. One, if a ball really runs out of air, it's probably going to be wider once it's flat. All that mass is going to come down and spread out. Also, it's probably not going to just be affected on top. The bottom's going to have to flatten out some amount. All right, let's see what we can do. So you may remember this was all about F6. And you know, I've never touched a touch bar. So if anyone's having touch bar problems today, I'm gonna ask Marissa because she helped out yesterday. Let's see. Well, one thing is this: if you're sitting at a big computer right now, you probably don't need the FN key. If you're sitting at a laptop, you probably do need the FN key. It looks like I might have more people today than I had yesterday. Oops, hang on a second there. Sorry. I'm taking a screenshot, so what's going on right here. There we go. So I take attendance. If you weren't here yesterday, just a quick reminder, the FN key, called the function key, stops your keyboard from doing what Mac says or Windows says, and says function the way the program says, the way Adobe Animate says. So I need to hold down FN, but we all need to tap F6. So I'm going to make sure I'm inside the program, FN, tap F6, and look at your timeline, please. I want to warn you about something that always happens in the classroom. If you keep F6 down, that's like holding the trigger down on a machine gun. This is going to be boo, 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 all over the place. You could have a pile of black dots. Command Z right away. We're talking about tapping. You could hold FN down, but you got to tap that F6. You only want 1 second keyframe. All right, that means your playhead, this blue line, is over the second drawing. You got your black arrow, and if you don't, please go get it. And I'm making believe my object's hit from the right. So I'm going to pull it in a very little bit. Tiny, tiny amount. Please just do a little. Then F6 again. Look at your timeline. You should see the third keyframe. That's a third drawing in time. Like if this was a flip book, this is page 3. And I want you to do the same thing in the same spot, just a tiny little bit. I'd like you to work on that same spot at least 6, 7, 8 times before you start expanding. And I want to say something about the tiny movement. So I'm going all the way to 6, 7, or 8. I'm going to go all the way to 8 just to make my point. Right, so here I am on frame 6. I think I'm just going to go one more. I want to say something about this. 2 or 3 quick things. By going very, very small increments each frame, it's going to be incredibly smooth, really smooth. If you make big leaps, it isn't going to be so smooth. But small changes also mean slow. So it's smooth and slow, right? Big changes are a little less smooth, but it doesn't matter as much because you do it only when you want speed instead of. So I'm going to probably speed it up at some point, but right now I want smooth and slow for people to get used to that idea. All right, I'm clicking inside again because I was just in Zoom. I am F6ing again. Now, you can, of course, work on multiple parts of the image. So you come in a little bit in the original spot, but by then something's got to happen. This is going to have to start to fall, so I'm going to pull it down a bit. Maybe I'll pull it from here. This too, maybe even the top. But make sure each of those changes is very tiny. So multiple changes are okay, but they should be tiny changes, all of them. Then you F6 again. And the same idea, you're starting to imagine this thing running out of air and how it might actually behave on the way down. And move forward. Now, if you start making bigger changes, and you can make huge ones, they're never going to look like an animation, right? I just Command Z. You know, if this is tiny, I could get away with that, the double dose, so to speak, right? And it's just going to feel like it's speeding up. The only thing that concerns me is you'll eventually would get to know your speed. So if I went that distance, the next time I better not go a smaller distance. You don't want it speeding up and slowing down. It's a little complicated. You might want to go at even increments just now. If you accidentally click on it, you might move it. Just Command Z, click off of it, and try it again. I'm going to repeat that in a moment. So if you accidentally click it and move it, Command Z to put it back and click off. All right, I'm going to ask you to keep moving. This should take about a second. It's okay if you're off by a bunch of frames. It really, really is. But it should take about a second, close to it. And that's marked right above frame 24. I love this exercise. I've done it many times, and it really, as simple as it is, it just keeps making me more and more sensitive to what the issues are. I wouldn't be using the white arrow for this, though one could. It's almost too detailed for this, and I don't really want to interrupt anyone's intuitive decision making. You know, a painter doesn't usually argue with themselves about the next color. So an animator isn't going to argue with themselves too much about the next edit. Don't forget to F6, don't go too far. Couple changes are fine. I'm just going to quickly check my chats for a minute. Make sure everything's good there. Everything's fine. And I'm only really a little over a half a second. So this approach takes a hell of a lot of effort. You know, I was watching an animator yesterday talk about, actually he wasn't an animator, he was a graphic novelist, but he was talking about anime and specifically how animate artists cheat. And one of the ways they cheat, let's say it's a background, a big lavish background of a mountainscape. They'll sort of drag the artwork around so it looks like the camera is panning over the landscape. Why do they do it? So it's one drawing. It could go on for seconds. Omar, don't worry too much about being late. I hope you were here yesterday. This way you could just jump in with us. If not, just watch for a little while and jump in on the next exercise. You know, life happens. People are late sometimes. All right. So you notice I come back and I scrub the playhead. That means to drag it now and then just to see how it's going. I'm particularly pleased with this one today. And I do want it to flatten out more, so I'm going to take a little bit more time for this. And it's a patience game. You know, so there are people who are just not made for it. And I got to say, there are faster approaches, but not really for what we're doing. This shape is it's just too specific of a situation for any cheats that I could think of. The only way to do this is this old traditional way. We're back to Winsor McKay's world, you know, to pull this off. I'm nowhere near a second. So this is going to happen very quickly. I am going to take it down a little bit more. And I'm widening the base more than I did yesterday because I think it's going to be more convincing. All right. Oops. Command Z, click off. And it's not going to come down to a flat line. You know, it's a bit of a blob. And even though I'm really very short, I think I'm going to stop. Now, if you want to watch it right in Animate, or if I ask you at any point to screen share with me, you don't have to leave. You just hit return or enter. Now, I'm really pleased with this. You know, it feels particularly natural for me, so I'm really very happy with it. It would just be terrific if I had another layer with an arrow hitting it and a sound effect that went it would be perfect, especially if it was a 17 frame long sound effect. How are you guys? All right? Okay, I want to take a quick peek at the handout, right? Because this was in the way of review, right? If you'd like to save it though, right? Let's do a quick save now. We don't have to export just now. We're going to do some exporting later. So I'm really just talking about this authoring file. Sometimes people call it authoring file. Why? We're not writing a book, but people call it that. Or the artist's file. Not the export file. This one's just for anybody with Animate. You can pass it off to the next team member, you know. But let's save it. So let's do File Menu Save the first time. You could do Command S right away. And since it hasn't been saved yet, it opens the big window. If you want to save it loose somewhere, go find that spot. If you did create a folder, find your way to the folder. I'm on my desktop, but today I created a folder for myself just to be neater. So I'm going to open the folder. Look, if you came late or you didn't make a folder, just save it to the desktop or wherever is convenient. So here's the location. Right up here, even though I chose save, it says save as, just meaning it doesn't have a name yet. And I'm going to call this one, I think I'm just going to call it animation. I'm going to call mine frame by frame 2, because we did one yesterday. And notice it is .fla, .fla. The weird thing about that is, obviously, it's referring to the parent of Adobe Animate, Flash, which is deceased, right? But we're still using the same last name, .fla. All right. Let's click Save. Okay. I want to show you my handout. So let's just take a look together. Hang on 1 second there. All right, each frame has art in it. I want to say something about what you just did, though. There's something called yes. Yes.
Actually, I have one question.
Okay.
For example, if we made it yesterday, the same enemy, right? And we combine two enemy together.
It would have to be 2 layers, which we're heading toward. See,
Okay.
well, let me be honest about that. That's not actually true. If one was careful and you were only doing frame by frame, you could just work in 1 layer. I could actually go to each frame and add a different object, and that would be acceptable. It would be a messy. When we get into the more modern techniques, though, they require that objects are on separate layers.
Okay.
So there's some room, you know. Okay. In fact, I want to talk about layers right now. So let's go get a taste of it. All right, let's go back to Animate. And I want to draw your attention to the timeline. And on the left of the timeline, right, you'll see this area that currently says layer 1. You just put this away. Layer 1. Let's rename layer 1. Could you double click that name? Layer 1. And I'm just going to call mine ball, even though it doesn't look like a ball for very long. And just like Photoshop, the name of the layer only matters in the sense of staying organized. In fact, let's lock that layer. So you'll notice up here is a padlock, but beneath it, on layer 1, if you mouse over just beneath the padlock on layer 1, you see a faint padlock there. If you click there, you just lock that 1 layer. What does that actually mean? It means it's safe. Can't really destroy it. I have to say I have one small gripe about it. In my opinion, if you lock a layer, you shouldn't be allowed to do anything to it. But there are a few things that are allowed when it's locked. It's too boring, not particularly helpful to go over right now, but let's lock it. It will protect it mostly. Largely protected. All right. What's more important to me, though, is this little plus sign over here. I want to say something to any of you who've been using Adobe before my class, any Adobe products. This little plus sign used to look like this, which used to mean new layer, right? Now they replaced it with this. So please click that little plus sign. I hope you're all seeing it. Click it only once so you make yourself a new layer. You know, Faik, you were saying just yesterday how much you enjoyed Photoshop. And, you know, that experience is going to be really helpful here. It's the exact same idea. The only thing that's different is there's also time. You know, in Photoshop, here's the room, here's the elephant. You know, if we wanted, we could have put a mouse in front of the elephant, you know, stack layers. Here we'd have the same arrangement, but they also move horizontally through time, right? So we got a brand new layer. This is what I want to do on this layer. All right, folks, could everybody join me rather specifically? I'd like you to get the rectangle tool. Well, first off, be sure you made a new layer. It should be highlighted so you know you're on that layer. And I'd like you to join me in one little thing. Folks, this is a little hard to describe, so I'm going to ask for a little extra attention. Please look closely. My playhead is right now over frame 17, my playhead. But if I tried to draw on the new layer now, and don't do this, all right? Just look. I want to show you something. This layer's got a hollow keyframe on the left, but my playhead's way over here on the right on frame 17. If I draw something now, it went to frame 1. That's why it just turned black. It totally ignored that I'm over here. Now, this is a really important idea, so I want to show you again. No matter where the playhead is, if there's no keyframe here, I can't draw. And if I try, it's going to go to the last keyframe. And it turns black to show me that. That's bad. So what I want you to do is bring the playhead back to frame 1. So you're not confused, right? Bring it to the correct keyframe. We'll be making our own later on, but we're not there yet. So we're bringing it back to the beginning. You see the keyframe, it's that little circle. All right, you know you're on the right layer. You know you're on the right keyframe. Now get the rectangle tool. I'd like you to choose a different fill color for the newer object. What I'd like for you to do is put an object about here. And I'd like you to make it about this size. Why? Here's the idea. That object is coming from off frame. Now, I might have mentioned to you that I directed one movie. I'm more of an editor, but I did direct one movie. And because I edit, I kind of knew what was going to cut later, like we did in Premiere. And one thing I realized is if the camera's still, right, and I want an actor to arrive, I have more freedom if they walk into the shot. You know, if I had a big budget, the other way would be to have a moving camera that actually follows the person walking, right? But otherwise, I want the person to walk into the shot, and it'd be great if they continue to walk out of the shot. It's very convincing. Feels like there was a before and after. So we're just sticking the nose into the shot, and we're going to take it to the point where the tail is just the only thing on stage. I hope this isn't too abstract, but there's one more advantage. If you're going to loop your GIF later, so it plays over and over, it'll make a much more interesting loop. That object's going to keep re-arriving and keep leaving. Like it just keeps coming back, or like more of its kin are arriving. You know, a bunch of baby ducks following the mother duck, and they just keep coming, you know. All right, so I want you to check something for me first. Could you get the black arrow? First off, make sure the playhead is in frame 1. I'd like you to actually click the big circle first. And you shouldn't be able to select it if you locked it. If it was unlocked, you could. All right, so I better lock mine. That's the lower layer. Then I'd like you to click the top one, and it should let you select it. And what's more, it should automatically go to the correct layer. All right, that's just a test. Could you please deselect it? All right, this layer only has one keyframe, and so we're ready to move forward. We're going to do our F6 trick. So use your F6 trick, however you need to do that on your computer with the FN key or whatever other approach you discovered yesterday. Now, I want to just explore motion this time, so I'd like you to hear me out. We're not going to change the shape of that object right now. We're going to control its speed. We haven't done that yet, so this is important and kind of very interesting. I want to tell you what the theory is going to be. It's going to start heading to the right, but at a constant speed at first, and a very slow constant speed, like that, but only for a little while. And I got two motives for that decision. One is the audience misses action unless you draw them in first. So if I have the object going slow and steady, the eye's going to be drawn to it, and then I could use their attention, my audience's attention, as I speed it up. I know I got them, and I'm going to speed it up. Here's the other reason. Nothing in nature can move at full speed first, except for light, or so we believe, that light moves at a constant speed. I'm not a scientist, but everything else doesn't. It starts at 0 speed, moves up a fraction, and it's like stepping on the gas in a car. It's going a little faster, woo, fast. Okay, did you F6 already? If you did, you got 2 keyframes on that layer. Take that object and move it a fraction. Then F6 again. Oops, hey, look what happened to me. Everyone, look, all those keyframes. Why did that happen? I don't know, but I'm glad I noticed. I better Command Z. If this whole thing got highlighted, you could see it's a faint blue. It's going to happen again. I'm just going to click on the last keyframe to make sure that I didn't highlight the whole layer. All right, F6 again, and drag it the same distance forward. Hey, Andy, how are you today?
Hanging in there, hanging in there.
I got the sense that it's a more challenging day. That's the Kinda. Such is life. I have to admit, I've had my share of that lately also. You guys actually snap me out of it sometimes. All right. So you've moved it forward a bit, right? Mine's joggling up a little bit, which I'm not too happy about. But let's do this speed maybe 4 or 5 frames only. So F6. You know, yesterday, John asked me a question which led to me mentioning onion skinning. So that was not required. It's not really technically part of the class. But for anyone who's interested, I'm going to turn my onion skinning on now. And if you want to join me, we could see if it's helpful or not, right? I'm on the fourth keyframe, which I haven't moved yet, apparently. And I'm coming down to the very bottom. And I'm looking for this little thing at the very bottom. It's a circle over a circle. If you click it, what you see is a little ghost behind the current one. And why does that help? It helps because I need to move this one the same distance. So I get a visual. I could see what those distances were, right? That's by pressing this particular button. I keep on highlighting the whole layer. What am I doing today? I don't know. But I'm going to click on that keyframe again to make sure it doesn't happen. All right. I'm going to create another keyframe. My onion skinning's on to help. So I'm going to move it forward that same amount, or you could do it by eye. I'm going to start speeding the object up now. And so I don't overly complicate things. I'm going to leave you the choice whether you have onion skinning on or off. I'm going to leave mine on just a little tiny bit longer. Here's the idea. In the classroom, I get up in front of everyone. It makes everybody laugh. And this is what I do. I take a couple even steps. And then I say, imagine each stride being slightly larger at this point, so that the next stride's just a little bit larger. And then the next stride's just a little bit larger. And the next stride's even larger. That's how you speed up, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to go even further, just a dash further than the equal distances I've been using. I'm going to F6 again, and I'm going to go even further than the last one. And this is a little harder to think about, right? So I'm going a little bit further than the last one. Each step now is, we haven't tried this yesterday. Each step is a little bit further than the prior step. It's like after a while, you're going to be doing some strange walking if this was walking, because your stride's just going to be impossibly large, right? I want you to keep going with that logic where each one is just a little bit larger. And if you're guessing, just do your best. If your onion skinning is on, and I want to remind you, this is the button to turn onion skinning on, right? You're getting a little visual feedback. So you drag your object, you do your F6 trick, you drag the next one even further than the last one went. Yeah, this thing's going to speed up like a rocket because I'm taking very large leaps now. Now it's even further than that. Look how far along I am from the last step. This next one's going to take it off stage. So I'm going to F6 it, and I'm going to take it. I think I will take it all the way off stage, after all. I'm going to turn off the onion skinning. Before I comment on that, I want you to see something. I'm dragging my playhead back to frame 1. Watch the purple box. Hang on. Did you feel it speed up? And here's what's going on. Here's frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going equal spaces, but look at these now. Each one is like quite a bit further than the last one was. So some of these have bigger distances. They represent bigger distances than they did at first. So now this is what I got. How is everybody? So look, folks, you know, it's interesting teaching a class like this or sharing a subject like this to a very diverse group. And when I say diverse, I mean diverse goals, right? You know, when I was in school, I took political philosophy. I wasn't going to go into politics, and I wasn't going to become a philosopher. I took a poetry class, which was incredibly difficult. I took a modern music class because I thought it was going to be easy. I'm not supposed to admit that, right? I'm the professor here. But the truth of it is, those classes changed my life. That's why I actually mention them. You know, the teachers were just so compelling. They just changed the way I saw everything. By the way, my political philosophy teacher was in trouble with the FBI constantly. And she was a sweet person. She never advocated violence, but she just was saying things the government didn't like. And then one day she came to class really upset. And she said, I'm going to tell you the truth of what happened. My house was robbed. Oh, that's terrible, we all said. They must have taken money and jewelry. Nope, they only took my files. How weird is that? You know? So anyway, right now, don't feel like you have to be the expert on acceleration. And any of you going into animation, your teachers are sure to talk to you about changing speeds. And if you're in my animation class particularly, I'll tell you in advance that yes, I am going to go over this in the fall for animators. I'm expecting 1 or 2 of you, or even 3 of you, to actually be in that class. So that's about acceleration. All right. Is someone trying to get me? Yeah, John. Sure.
I missed something. How did you get that large gap in your timeline?
Take a look, folks. I'm going to demo, but I'm going to demo kind of quickly, right? Because we're getting closer to the subject we need for the final. But watch this one. John, you want me to do this with, I'm going to do this with the onion skinning off for a minute. Right? Let's see if that's clearer, right? So I'm going to lock this layer, right? And I'm going to make a new one, right? So here I got a rectangle. Oh, let me bring the playhead back to the beginning so I'm not confused. So I'm back. So this is the new dimension, time. So I brought it back to the beginning. I'm on layer 3, and here's my rectangle tool. I'm going to make this one a different color. All right, so there's my first keyframe there on that layer right here. I'm going to F6 it, and I'm going to take this object, focusing just on this one, and I'm going to move it a tiny, tiny bit. I'm going to F6 it, and I'm going to move it a tiny bit. Ignore the other stuff because it's distracting. I'm talking about the new actor. And each time I'm moving it the same tiny bit. And I believe in this approach. It's not accelerating. Right now it's moving at a strangely constant speed, just so that the eye could take note of it. Now, when I'm ready to start accelerating, I F6 again. And here's the new rule. If last time, let me zoom in just a little bit here. If last time I only moved this far, this time I'm going to move just a little further. The thing is, I got to memorize how far I went, so I'm staring at it. When I F6 the next time, I'm going to match the last step and add a little bit more. Then I'm going to memorize this, because each time it's got to be a little larger. So the next time I go again, I'm guessing, because I don't have onion skinning on, that the last step was about that far. So I'm going to go a little further. And every single time I do it, the premise is to go a little bit further than I did last time. Now, a lot of people find this easier with onion skinning on, because now I could see this is how far I just traveled. So this is the last one. Here's this one. And I'm going to, let me just double check something. There we go. I'm going to F6. Make sure I didn't highlight the rest of the layer. And I'm going to drag it further than the last one. Well, I'll admit that does take some effort, right? Let me back up a bit. I just want you to see the top of the screen kind of easily. All right. Let me turn off the onion skinning for a minute. Sometimes I do that so I don't get confused. So this is the last. This is the one I just did. I should say this is the very last right here. So I'm going to go one more. With onion skinning back on, if that's the distance that I just traveled, this one's supposed to go further than that. So I'm comparing this tail. So that would be the same speed, but I'm going a little further to increase the speed. This is the gap now. Watch what happens when I F6 to move forward. This is the distance I want to exceed. I still have to do it by eye. I'm just using onion skinning to give me a head start on it. And this is going to be going very fast at this point. The leaps are so large. John, can I ask you a question? I know I've asked you before, so I apologize for not remembering. What's your major?
Multimedia.
Multimedia. So I got to tell you, as a multimedia guy, doing animation has really been good for me. You know, really, it's given me more than I could offer to my clients than if I didn't take animation as seriously as I did. So I'm really glad that I made that decision. So there I go. And right now, if I go even further than the last one, I'm practically off stage. I'm going to turn off my onion skinning and show you something when I play it. Let me just back up. I'm going to zoom in just a bit. Program's a little awkward when it comes to zooming around the place. But here we go. Let me bring it back to the beginning. Try to watch just the green one. So it's funny about this race the two boxes are having. The green one took a little while to speed up. And so you could tell how much control a person gets once they understand this idea. John, did that help?
Yes.
So just literally imagine taking tiny little steps just 3 inches apart, and then the next step is 4 inches worth, and the next step is 5, 6. After a little while, you're taking, you know, yard-long strides. You'd just be going shoo at that point. I want to say something quickly. Oop, I better plug in my batteries. Getting a little low. Yeah, you know, we know in reality, even if you took the same exact stride, you could go faster by just moving from the hip faster, you know, with the same distances, you know, doing a little funny walk. You don't like when people speed walk, which always looks bizarre, right? Because the stride is the same. They're just like picked up how fast their legs are actually exchanging. You know, what we actually call a walk cycle in animation. Anyway, let's take a look at the handout, because a lot of this still falls in the category of digital literacy or animation literacy. I want to get us to more stuff and then sink our teeth into something specific and useful. If you want to keep it, please save as we go. I'm going to do plain old Command S or Control S. It's got a home, it's got a name, it's got a folder. I haven't bothered to export yet. I want to go back to the handout for a minute. So we were just working with layers, doing more frame-by-frame animation. I want to introduce something to you that I just know you're going to like. It's an incredibly fast way to make one shape move while changing shape and while changing color. And it's incredibly fast. The only problem with it is it's not very specific. So for example, the ball, the way the ball fell down, had to be very specific to feel real, you know, to feel right. So I had to do it frame by frame. These rectangles, there are other ways I could have done it that probably would have been a little faster. So we're about to start something brand new. Okay. I'm getting back into Animate. I'm going to ask you to save this one. I think the next one's better off on a brand new document. We got 3-layer document here that's saved. Could everyone join me by asking for a new page? Let's go to the File menu and Animate. File, New. And yes, you can have more than one animation open at a time. I want you to check that you got the same numbers we've been using on the right. A 640 width by a 480 height. And the frame rate is 24 frames. And the platform is ActionScript 3. So the right side should look just like this. And click Create. You know, I want to mention something. In my animation classes, I often say, get comfortable. And that means a combination of getting to a zoom level that you like, so that, you know, you're not looking at that, right? You don't even want to look at this because I don't know where the walls are, right? So you might need to find a comfortable zoom level for yourself. You might want to move the stage around, and you could do that by holding down your space bar, pressing and dragging the stage. Space bar, press and drag. Okay. Let's start something new. folks, this is one way to make a fairly convincing animation with a minimum of 2 frames, and the computer figures out the rest. So we're on frame 1 of layer 1 naturally, and you see that the blank keyframe is waiting. All right, I'd like for everybody to get the rectangle tool. This time I'd like you to select a fill, and if you want to, you could also select a stroke. That's kind of up to you, stroke color. I would say though that if you are going to choose to use a stroke color, just for variety's sake,
Good night. Thank you.
I would like you to notice something that I want to show you. This is stroke size. I'm going to suggest that you either highlight that number. I'm going to set it to 3 points, 3 pixels, I should say, because a stroke size of 1 pixel is hard to see. Let me just rearrange my screen. I was messing with it before. There we go. All right, basically, just get the rectangle tool, choose a fill. If you do want to choose a stroke, I'm suggesting you change this number to 3. All right, I would definitely want your rectangle about this size and about that big. So we're comparing techniques. The next decision, I want to tell you what we're going to do. This thing's going to cross the stage, change color, and turn into a circle. Now, if we had to do that frame by frame, I'd lose you all. You know, I really would. Frankly, I'd lose myself. I would find a new job. Secretly, I always wanted to be a mailman. In my next life, I'm either going to be a mailman or a seagull. I don't know. My 2 favorite jobs. Anyway, so what we have to decide is how long should that take to cross the stage, right? So don't do this, but take a peek, right? The last animation we were working on, mine isn't even a second long, right? Those objects are crossing the stage in under a second. I think I'm going to make this one a little bit slower. Okay, guys, I want you to look for where it says 1S on the timeline. And beneath it, on this particular layer, I want you to click right in frame 24. I want to mention something to you. If you came to class late or I'm talking too much, you might have set your frame rate to 30. If you did, this 1 second mark is over here. And you know what? Fine. Then I want you to click in frame 30. But I'm hoping you followed along with me and did set the frame rate to 24. So on your layer, you're going to click in the layer, not up here. This is just a time ruler. And we're going to do something new. You see, we've been using F6, one of my favorite shortcuts, to copy the last object. And the only time I do that is if the object itself is not going to change. Cars don't change while you drive. So I could F6 a car and move it anywhere I want. Most things don't change a hell of a lot, right? A ball being punctured did, right? So I copied the ball and made a small change because each change was little. But if it changes complete, a completely different shape, F6 is going to cause more trouble than help. What we need is a blank keyframe. So what I'm saying is, in 1 second, this object's going to become a circle. And to do that, we need to put a keyframe here. Here's my favorite way to do it, and this should work for everybody in the room. If you're on Windows, right-click in here. If you're on a Mac, find the Control key, not the Command key. The Control key. Hold down Control and click in frame 24. Windows, you right-click, or if you've got that kind of mouse. You're looking for this menu. So whether you right-click in here or Control-click, you get the same menu. This is the one you want. I want to mention F6 copied the last artwork and made a keyframe. This doesn't copy the artwork. It just makes a keyframe. Insert blank keyframe. So what just happened doesn't look too thrilling. You had your artwork back here, and now it disappeared because on the same layer, you have a blank keyframe, which essentially made the other one retire. But if you bring the playhead back, even if you played the movie, it sits there until the blank keyframe shows up. Hey, I got to ask you before we do the next thing. Does your layer look like this? What you should be seeing is one black keyframe way to the left and one hollow keyframe on the right. If you've been playing with your playhead, just to make sure we didn't get lost, could you click on the new keyframe? I want to tell you something. You know, your teacher might, I hope I seem smart sometimes because I cover all this cool stuff. But what I have to do to even deal with it, one, I have to accept areas that I'm not going to rock, and other areas where I just got to simplify life. So one thing that I do to simplify things so I don't get lost is I click the last keyframe to make sure I'm not lost. I want to put artwork essentially in this keyframe. All right. Basically what I'm trying to say is stay neat, keep things simple. This way you can be creative. All right, you click the last keyframe. What I want you to do is get the oval tool. So I had put this rectangle in the middle. Now we're on the new keyframe. I want you to get the oval tool, pick a different fill. If you want, pick a different stroke color. Remember, you chose this keyframe, and it's not too late. You could choose it now. But then I want you to draw about here. Now, it's not really an animation yet, but it's going to feel a little like one. If your first keyframe's got the rectangle and the last keyframe's got the oval, even if you brought it back to frame one and played it, the eye's going to play tricks on you. Try it out. Bring your playhead to frame one and hit return or enter. And what it feels like is like that object sat there waiting and then just took off. Shoot. Which is bizarre, you know, because we didn't do a thing. It's just the eye needed to explain it and fools us into thinking it moved. But I want to show you what's really cool. In the middle, we're going to click and ask for a shape tween. New stuff. So here we go. You could click anywhere in your layer between this black keyframe and this black keyframe, anywhere. Doesn't matter, will have no effect, but you do have to be between. I'm going to ask you to right click or control click to get the same menu as before. Now, you'll notice there's three kinds of tween up here. This will break it. We're going to learn this one, by the way, but not today. This will also break it. This is what you want. Create shape tween. Please click create shape tween. What should be happening now, let me just, well, I got to get better control of zoom. Drives me a little crazy. What should be happening is one, you should be seeing an odd shape in the middle, right? Which is kind of morphed in between shape. You should be seeing on the layer. Can I ask you guys something? Because this is this version that we're using, by the way, is literally 9 days old. That's how new this version is. It's 9 days old. Are you seeing an orange bar now on your layer, like mine? You seeing the same color as me? Just give me this if you are. All right. I was just wondering if the operating systems behave the same. All right, so in this version, an orange bar means shape tween. It used to be green. I don't know why they get restless. But could you bring your playhead back to the beginning and play it? Hit return or enter. Is it working?
Yes.
Yeah. Marissa, it's not working, is it? How did I know that? It's weird, isn't it? Do you want a screen share? Your mic's off though. I guess you figured since I could read minds, you didn't need a mic. Anyway.
I guess I kind of just want to see you do it again.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed.
All right. That's fair, because I'm going to do it again. So anyone else in here, I know a few of you never say anything. That's, you know, it's your choice. As long as you're learning, I'm cool with it. I am going to show it again. All right. But in the meantime, I just want to point out a couple things if you do have it working already, right? What's going on is the beginning of the movie established my actor as it behaved originally, right? But it's going to transform. I made a decision about how long it's going to take, the whole transformation and the whole relocation. I went and I made a blank keyframe a whole second down the road. And in that blank keyframe, I drew an oval. When I asked for the shape tween, this long arrow showed up, which means it's going to tween, obviously standing for in between, from one piece of art to the next piece of artwork. And I want to tell you frankly, and I promise I am going to do it again, right? This is the way it used to go. This is before my time, right? But there was the keyframe artist and there was the tween artist. And I would imagine for every keyframe artist, there could have been as many as 10 tween artists. So the keyframe artist drew the key moments. So here's Bugs Bunny peeking out from behind a tree, you know, next to a green field. And he's going to run across the field because he's being chased by, I don't know, Elmer Fudd. So, you know, a second down, someone, the keyframe artist drew him dashing into the trees on the other side of the field. The tweeners knew what their job was, you know, and there might be notes from the keyframe artist. I want this to take a second, right? They would literally figure out every single drawing to get Bugs Bunny, you know, those are ears, by the way, to get across the field, right? And that's called a tween. All right, you know what I'd like to do, just so that I don't make a big mess together? Let's just open up a new document real fast. Could everyone do File Menu New? Okay, everyone, this time, be extra careful, right? This is the width. This is the height. This is the frame rate. That's just 24, right? 0.00 is the same thing, doesn't matter. Just don't forget the point. Action script 3. All right, let's click create. All right, join me. Just simply get the rectangle tool. If you want to change your colors, change them now. If you want to change the stroke weight, you could even change it now. Mine just had a 3 pixel stroke, and I'm going to keep that. So our goal is to make this thing travel horizontally to here and turn into a circle. Now to do that, I have to make a blank keyframe somewhere. If I wanted to take a second, since I know we chose the frame rate 24 frames in a second, I click here. Now I want to mention the most likely mistake is not putting a blank keyframe there. When I teach it in class, I'll walk around and a lot of people have 2 drawings back in frame 1. That won't work, right? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to right click in here. If you got a mouse that does that, or you're going to control click in here and choose insert blank keyframe. The reason it's blank is because we need a brand new drawing. There's no use copying the rectangle over there. If we wanted to do that, I would have F6'd. But we want a blank keyframe. So the blank keyframe looks like this, a hollow circle. And you playheads over it, it's selected. I want you to switch to a different shape. To make it more fun, I'm also going to want a different color. It's up to you whether you want the stroke to change color or not. And I'm going to put my circle about here. So right now, there's no tween. What I've got is 22 empty frames. So if I played this movie, it isn't going to look too convincing. Something's happening. But that's just the nature of the human eye. What we need to do is click in between them. And we're going to ask for a tween. So first we click in between. So make sure you're right in between on that gray bar. And then hold down Control, in between, or right click. You're looking for this and only this. These other options will break it. Create shape Tween. So we verified that this version gives you an orange bar for a shape tween. I'd like you to bring your playhead back to frame 1 so you could see what you did. By the way, if I looped it, it looks like it's coming round and round. Did it work? Cool. Guys, listen, don't be shy. You know, the only time it bothers me if someone asks me to repeat something that took 4 hours to teach, I bug out. Nowadays, I'll go like this. I'll bug out over here. No one knows.
Yeah,
Everybody-
for some reason, I thought if I was selecting it, I just wasn't creating the keyframe is what I was doing, the blank one.
And you know what? So you got through that. That's something everybody does. You know, I got to tell you something. 90% of your mistakes, I'm talking to everyone now, everyone else made at a different time. I've been doing this for a really long time, and you've seen me make mistakes. Every now and then, one of you very politely says, "Oh, Ira, do." And I appreciate that. You know, I'm entitled. So that's it. It's really just repetition, incredible amounts of repetition. You know, the people who take my class in the fall, like the first month, they're you know, because the long semester, I'm talking about a regular semester. They're like, "Come on, I want to make people walk and talk and jump and play baseball." Like, tame yourself. You know, an infant can't ride a motorcycle. You know what I mean? Get to the bicycle, get to the tricycle. You know, it doesn't really take all that long if a person's, you know, patient. Also, just allow, you know what, this animator whose interview I was watching yesterday said something really clever. He was quoting somebody else, so I'm double quoting right now. He said, "Fail faster." His secret to success is fail faster. That's just great. That's a great idea. Fail faster, because you're going to have to get through those things to know what doesn't work. You have to know them. So you have to fail. Anyway, let's find out what we can do. I want to show you some cool stuff about this. And you really don't have to be shy. The class is very supportive. But if you have it working, I want to show you something. Could you drag your playhead back to frame 1? This is just crazy. I want you to take that artwork. So you're going to need the black arrow. So go to frame 1. That's the only place you have artwork, frame 1 or frame 24. The middle is generated by the computer. You can't move anything in here, but you could move anything in the 2 keyframes. So please go to frame 1, get the black arrow. Now I want to say something. I want to move it up here, but I got to mention, this I never told you before. This is new. These objects are called editable objects. And if I want to move an object, I have to be careful about something. Watch this. Don't do it. Just watch it. Yeah, that looks very wrong. And I just broke the animation. I have no idea what it's going to look like. Let's see what it looks like. So look, I'll admit it looks kind of cool, but it's an accident and I won't be able to work with it. So I can't really allow it, right? So I got to Command Z till I get it back. Here's the rules. These objects are not, we're going to learn about symbols tomorrow, which are freeze-dried objects. They don't do this. These are called editable, meaning that you could edit them, like we've learned. To select an editable object with a stroke, you have to double-click it. If you only click it once, you're just getting the fill. So go to frame 1. If you have a stroke, you have to double-click, and I want you to drag it to the top. And then play your animation. The tweens redrew themselves live. I'd like you to go back to frame 1 one more time. Change its shape. I'm using the black arrow. Watch what happens now. All the ones in the middle change too. That's incredible. You know, that's incredible. And I would love to draw a person in frame 1 and then draw a werewolf in frame 24, except for that won't work. Right? So shape tweening is cool to a point. It works very well with simple geometric shapes. It works terribly with multiple shapes, which comes back to Faik's earlier question, right? And I'm going to prove that to you. If I wanted multiple shapes for this kind of thing, I need multiple layers, right? But here I've got one shape per keyframe, and I'm good, right? I'd like you to go to the right side, in other words, to frame 24, or whatever your last frame is, right? I want you to select that object and move it somewhere. But while you're at it, change it in some way. You know, maybe change its color. I just changed its stroke size. So I moved it, I altered it. Now if I play the whole movie, I change both ends. All right, I do want to move forward. I don't have a lot of time left. I just want to say a little bit about Shape Tweeny. So really, there's frame by frame, there's shape tweening, there's classic tweening, which is my favorite, and we're going to give it the most attention. And there's motion tweening, and there's tweening with pure code. Yes, the program has code. This version uses JavaScript. And people who are really good at JavaScript can do crazy things in here, right? 5 different ways to animate. And the truth of it is the animators I admire most mix those methods. Traditional animators only do frame by frame. And I could tell you movies that have won major awards where every frame was drawn by hand. The movie The Snowman is completely gorgeous, feature-length movie, a Christmas movie, drawn in color pencils. The entire movie. Man, those people had more patience than anyone I could imagine. But usually we combine different methods, and that's why I'm going to show you 3 this semester. Hey, does anybody have any questions about this stuff so far? I think I want to go over exporting a little bit, maybe take it a little bit further than I did before. If you want to save your work, why not save this one to the same folder? So this one is currently called Untitled 3. I'm going to do File Menu, Save. And I'm going to call it Shape Tween.fla. I'm saving it into my folder today so I don't make a big mess. Or as I said earlier, it isn't critical, it's just neat. Shape Tween.fla, I'm going to save it. I want to look at this last one that we didn't save. If you do want, they're the same, you know, so I'm not going to bother saving this one. I'm going to throw it out. So I'm clicking the little X. Save it? Nah. So I've got 2 that are saved. All right. Now, I want to take exporting a little bit further. There's a lot of file types that we could export to, and it's one of the reasons the program's so popular. I think people working for TV probably have their favorites, and I'm kind of guessing that it's going to be MP4, which is the video flavor of the moment right now. People making short bits for the internet are definitely making GIFs. If you're going to do sound, you can't use GIFs. So I think what I'd like to do right now is make both a GIF and a video, just to see what it's like, right? So I'm going to ask you to pick the movie you want to work with. I'm picking the first one that we made. And here we go. Make sure that it's saved, right? So if you made any kind of changes, just do save again. If save is gray, it means it's current. No worries. All right, let's go to File Menu, Export. And you'll notice I've got, you know, what is it, 5 choices here. We did GIF yesterday. I'm going to review that. And then we're going to do video. Don't be confused by this. This means something else. So we want GIF, and then we're going to do video. Let's go to the GIF. And I just want to point out a couple quick things. Yesterday, I said, be sure that transparency is off. And, you know, I want to do a better job of pointing something out. I just canceled. You don't have to if you don't want to. If I had a stage color, which admittedly really improves my animation. I especially want to make sure I have transparency off. In my class, I'm going to recommend we just keep it off. So here, I'm back where you are, animated GIF. Don't check this. So we got a GIF. There's no transparency because it would do that. And it's got a goofy looking edge, so I don't even like it. I'm going to make sure it's not checked. And you're just going to decide whether you want it to loop or not. And on my screen, it's hard to show you. It's hiding behind the done button. I got to sneak up on it. I don't have any good solutions for this, folks. We're all going to have to fend for ourselves a bit. Play it once. You know, right now I think it's more fun if I have it loop forever. Then simply click save. So all I really want to say about this is by default, it uses the exact same name as your FLA. And you might remember I made a big deal about extensions early this semester, you know, because I had a lot of trouble in the Windows lab at school where students couldn't tell the GIF from the FLA, from the MP4. And, you know, their little icons are supposed to help, but they aren't always accurate. So if necessary, type it in for yourself. If you're using a folder, save it to the same folder. Save. All right. I'm going to minimize Animate and check my folder for a minute. And if you want to join me, please do. All the menus in Animate include one just called Animate. So I'm going to go to Animate, and I'm going to choose Hide Animate. If there's other stuff in your way, get it out of your way and find today's folder. So all these FLAs stacked up. There's 2 recovery ones, which I really don't need. I'm going to move them to my trash. Here's the 2 that I saved myself. And you can tell these 2 match. If my client doesn't like the GIF I deliver, I open this one. I make the changes and produce a new GIF. Now, about watching the GIF, there's multiple ways to do it, but the best way is in a browser, right? That's where GIFs typically live, right? You know, in the internet, in the browser. So you could open it in Chrome in any number of ways, and the simplest way is to drag and drop. So I'm going to get Chrome back out again, or Firefox, or whatever you want to use. I'm going to open up a free tab. And I'm literally going to drag and drop it. There are other ways, but this is a good one. And there goes my movie looping around. It's pretty satisfying. You know, I'm surprised that I could accept that ball melting. It doesn't feel like a sudden hiccup when it goes back to frame 1. You know, the other 2, the 2 rectangles make the most sense because they just keep on looping around. We're going to make a video in a moment. Would you guys tell me if the GIF didn't work? You know, I'm looking at names here because, you know, some of you chime in now and then, or if I say hi, you say hi, which is appreciated. Some never say anything. I know what it's like to be shy. When, you know, when I was in college, I went to college a year early. Not that I'm that smart. I don't know how that happened. But I was immobilized. So I sat in the back corner of every single class. And I learned half as much as I should have. So later on, I realized that and moved up front. All right.
Professor, I
Yes,
have a question.
Sure.
Can we add like voice in this program or not?
Can I add what?
Voice.
I'm sorry, could you spell that last word for me, Sal?
Voice, like sound or something like in this
Voice.
program. Yeah.
Oh
voice.
my God. Guys, you're going to hate me, right? This is intended as inspiration and not being annoying, right? Give me a second. I want to show you something. And then we're going to make a video together. This is not the one that I want. Give me a second here. Yeah, give me a second here. Give me a second there. My brain doesn't want to help right now. Give me 1 second. Let's see. I think these guys talk. Well, this guy doesn't talk. Hang on a second. Sorry, give me just 1 second. Maybe I'll, maybe. Oh. I'm trying to learn a little bit about voiceover, and here is my. I don't like that one. I'm trying to learn a little. Who is that guy? I'm trying to learn a little bit about voiceover, and here is my test file. So yeah, short answer, Sal, is yes. Trying to learn a little bit about and it's fun, voiceover, and it's a lot of steps, a real lot of steps. But I want to address her question. The program's a full-out animation program. As I said, Blue's Clues and other famous animations were done in this program. To make a voice move, you take a mouth that's called neutral, and it looks like this, right? And you design a number of mouth shapes to cover the kind of sounds that we make. The mouth shapes, according to sounds, are called voicemes. So different people work with different number of voicemes. This program works very well with 12. So I have to make 12 mouths. Oh, ah, e, m. And most of them cover multiple sounds. There's several ways to bring the voice in, to drop that sound file in, right? And once that sound file is in, this version, by the way, you're using has some automatic features that does a marvelous job of matching the voice to your own drawings, but you have to do the drawings. And it's complicated. I'm currently covering it in Intro to 2D Animation, even though it's a bit much for what they call intro. My intro class is Turbo, more Intro Plus, right? Solid, that answered your question, I guess, right?
Yeah, it looks cool. I want to
It's so
try it.
much fun, really. And you know, students have taken my voice. So someone made me into an owl recently. I realized they do look a bit like an owl. With my voice, it was really funny. It does a good job with sound. All right, I want to go over the video before people have to leave. Then I might show you guys something else just for fun, or a couple other things just for fun. Let me get back to Animate. Let's get back into Animate. So we made the GIF, and one reason the GIF was successful was because it didn't have sound. But if we had brought in sound and made a voice over, or even just music, we'd need to export a video. So you always make sure your movie's current, in other words, saved. And then you go back to the file menu again. File, export. And this time we're using export video / media. Not movie, okay? Everybody be sure it says video. Now, I'm a little worried about this step for a couple of reasons, right? One, this version of the program is only 6 days old, and I neglected to test it to make sure it works the way I expect. Two, there's a feature down here that says start Adobe Media Encoder immediately. So I'm going to make it kind of quick because I can go over this tomorrow. Adobe Media Encoder is also part of the Creative Cloud suite. And it's a program that connects to video programs as well as animation programs like this one, and also Premiere. And all it does is re-encode video into all kinds of different things that video can do, right? So it's not much of a program. It's more like an add-on. Thing is, I didn't ask you to load it, so I'm not sure what would happen. Is yours checked already? It is, huh? Dare I do this? We have two choices. If we uncheck it, it makes a QuickTime movie, usually, which is pretty easy. let's check it. Let's see what happens. Right? This is the way I like to do it anyway. Let's see what happens. You guys will let me know. Right? This is a bit of a trial because I really don't know what you have at home precisely. All right, notice it's got the same width and height. We're not checking ignore stage color, which I might do if I was going to bring this into After Effects. Maybe I want to do my background there. It says do the entire movie. This might look familiar to you, I hope, because we just did this in Premiere. This is the way it gets us to MP4, right? This is the codec. So since we covered that subject, I don't want to cover it again, right? And here, it's looking at the wrong folder probably. So I'm going to ask you to click here and choose your folder or your location that you'd like the movie to go. I'm going to click here. This is today's folder for me, but if it wasn't, I'd go looking for it. Or you can just save it to your desktop and click save. So this is a path, just like we used to see in the browser when we were doing web pages. So just click this if you need to change the location. We've checked this, so this is a bit of a gamble. Let's click export. Now, again, this is a brand new, untested version. What I expected to happen was Adobe, there it is. It just took a little while. Now, while my media encoder is opening, I got to ask, what's going on in your, Jonathan, your mic's on. What's going on for you?
So far, nothing.
Nothing. So that's probably because we would have had to go to Creative Cloud, find media encoder,
Oh, there's
and
media.
load it.
I take it back. There it is. It just
It
popped
did
up.
open. Did it open for anybody else?
Yes, for me, the
You too? So Marissa, there's two possibilities what's going on, right? One is your computer's taking its time. The other one is that you might actually have to load it yourself. In other words, you know, go to Creative Cloud, look for media encoder. Let me just, I'm really confusing my computer. Find media encoder, here it is. Mine says update because I already have it. It apparently needs to be updated. You know, yours would probably say install, right? So you could try that later if you'd like to try this again in the future. I'll probably talk about it again, right? Right now, I don't want to get too complicated. No one feel disappointed if it didn't work for you. I'll try to be more thorough tomorrow now that I have more information. So here I am back, and it's telling me that it was successfully created, which is pretty darn interesting because that means Encoder opened and ran it automatically by itself, which I didn't expect to happen. That's pretty cool. The only way I'm going to feel sure of it is if I go to my folder and actually see the movie in there. So if it's telling me that it's successful, I'm going to say, all right, but I'm suspicious. And I want to get back to today's folder.
I'm sorry, mine is telling me it's unavailable.
So the same thing I was saying to Marissa. If you want to try this tomorrow, I'm more than happy going over it, but you're going to have to go to Creative Cloud after class.
That's where I am, on Creative Cloud.
And it says unavailable?
Yeah, it comes up with an X with the icon shaded out. It says temporarily unavailable.
Huh. I'm stumped, Andy. So
Me
you know what I could do? I could show, if you don't mind, tomorrow, I'll show two different ways to make a movie.
Okay,
One without the Adobe Media Encoder and one with.
I'm gonna keep trying.
Yeah, I'm a little stumped about why that would happen. Let me put this aside though, because I want to get to my folder for a minute. And my desktop's messy. So sure enough, there it is. There's the MP4. About previewing an MP4, right, which is a standard video type. Some computers will let you double click it and it'll open up in whatever video player you have installed. And that's completely different, not only on Mac and Windows, but just based on what kind of preferences you have and what happens to be on your computer, right? It's a video and it can open in many different programs. So I think what I prefer to do is drag it into the browser. So there's my MP4. It's got the play controls on it currently. And there you have it. That's how you make a movie. And if there was sound, it would play now. So guys, I just want to say something quickly. I've been very satisfied. Again, as always, if you need to leave, please leave. The class officially ends at noon. You never should feel trapped. For those of you who are sticking around, first let me address this last export issue. Exporting video is often a bigger headache than exporting other things. Get that out of the way. Adobe Media Encoder has been around for years, so I've had time playing with it, and yet I always cross my fingers a little bit. For one, it changes often, and it's nothing you spend a lot of time in. It's something you visit when you're exporting, right? It's got all the same features we saw in Premiere's export. The old Premiere used to also open in Encoder before it had the same features all by itself. But we could still make QuickTime movies without it. So tomorrow, I think I'm going to focus on the QuickTime movie. We'll see if we have time to do both, right? I do want to say, though, that one has to conquer it if they're going to use sound, like Sala had mentioned. It's always going to be video, the output file, some kind of video. So, but it's not like the first thing you have to master. You know, I'd really sooner let people, you know, make movies and make animations and then kind of fight it out if necessary with export. If you did manage to get Adobe Media Encoder open, fantastic. If you didn't actually install it and it opened by itself, that borders on magic. And it should have happened for everybody.
It happened to me. It just
Did it?
installed and opened it by itself, but the first time it crashed, so I reopened it again and it worked. But it installed by itself.
Amazing. So that's got to be a new decision by Adobe, that if you install certain programs that need it, it piggybacks on it. That never used to do it in the past. So it always tires me out as a teacher because it's yet another program and we're learning like so much in here. But in any case, it wasn't too many steps once you get it loaded. So I'm gonna wish everybody luck who's interested in getting a copy of it. Please don't get too upset on July 6th.
It just did it. I logged back in. I signed out and logged back in, and it just says open.
Oh, really?
So the media encoder is now there, but it just says to open it. Like I don't have to install it or anything. I have it.
So that just convinced me. This is new. You know, one thing that drives me nuts about Adobe, and they do it because they're rulers, and it's why I don't like monarchies. They release things without support. This version of Animate has 5 new features, 0 support.
They don't even have they usually have a tutorial when you first open something up.
I couldn't find a tutorial. And what's worse, they didn't update the manual.
Mm.
They updated the program without the manual. Why? Because
They figure you'll get it.
right. We can't do a thing about it. We can't say, oh, that's all right, I'll go to the other company. You know, when I argue with Verizon, I tell them I'm going to Optimum. When I'm arguing with Optimum, I'm telling them I'm going to Verizon. And they're like, oh, wait, we'll help you. But, you know, so anyway, it's actually in this one moment kind of good news. It basically means that, yeah, okay, it didn't work smoothly, I'll admit, but it kind of knew what you needed. So it's heading in the right direction. There's going to be more patches as we move forward. It will eventually, those of you who keep Creative Cloud, it's going to remind you now and then and say, look, there's a new version. Shall we load it? And usually the right answer is yes. Hey, I promised to do something with somebody at noon, didn't I? I totally forgot what it was. I should have written it down.
We're gonna go over the CR and C grades.
Oh yeah. So you know, I'm gonna do my best for anyone in here who needs it. You know, guys, for the record, I have to give you a disclaimer. I'm a lifetime teacher, but I'm not an administrator. And I've been given the advice to not answer questions about credit, no credit, in case I make a mistake and I don't want to be liable. So I'm going to do my best within reason, right? The first thing that I want to ask anyone in the room right now and anyone watching this on YouTube later is, I want you to ask yourself, really, did you fail anything because of COVID? If the answer to that question is yes, you definitely want to take the no credit option, because that F takes your grade point down. A lot of our students would go to other schools, you know, most notably FIT and other schools. But if your grade point is reduced because of an F, that's a problem. I don't know if they're offering it for Ds or even for C minus for that matter. And I'm not even sure I'd suggest you take it. I would definitely suggest it for an F. So the first thing you should probably check is your BMCC email. I don't know how much you check it over the summer, right? So you'd have to check it. Now here's the thing though. What I'm gonna do is this, rather than waste everybody's time. I'm gonna send this to Ira MMP100 at Gmail, you know, our email, our shared email. If anyone wants me to send it to you today, you send me an email requesting it and I'll just forward it to the same email. So basically all I'm saying is this. Let me get to my handout for a minute. I'm talking about this email address. If you want me to forward the instructions for today's Zoom meeting and tomorrow's Zoom meeting about how to take the no credit option, send me an email to this address only now, right? I know some people are watching this later on YouTube. You do your best, and I could forward it to you tomorrow, because tomorrow's meeting is at night. And I do believe that that is the deadline for you to make that decision. So it's interesting that they're doing the meeting at night. That means that's acceptable. I can't really say any more about it. So just tell me you'd like a copy of this email because it didn't arrive for you. Came from Marva Craig, who I don't personally know. And the gist of it, as far as I can tell, is you choose whether you want to go right now because it ends at 1, or whether you'd rather go tomorrow between 4 and 7. And you simply click this link at either of those times to join the Zoom meeting, and you'll tell them your situation, and they'll give you thoughtful answers. By the way, I think it's very fair and insightful of schools to do this. You know, I'm sure you guys agree. We couldn't save everybody from tech issues.
Can I say too, like, this is, if you do need help with it, because this messed me up last semester. Some of my professors, like, I took this class last semester and you, Ira, gave me an F because I completely dropped out, but I knew I was going to retake it.
Right.
So I did that for 2 other classes, but those professors gave me a WU, I guess because of the absences. And if you have a WU, you can't do the credit, no credit. So now you have to make an appeal. It's like really obnoxious. So for your, and I guess to Professor, like, thank you for giving me the F, because
I've never heard that in my entire career.
because I knew I was going to retake it, you know?
Somebody must have tipped me off to that. Like, the head of the department is very wise. I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. I think he's really wise. I often skip over everybody and try to get him. And we were so attacked with information, your professors, as you guys probably were, from like every direction of what to do to survive that semester, that weirdest of all semesters so far. I think he actually tipped me off that it wasn't going to feel good, but that the Fs were going to be an advantage.
Yeah, like,
Your teachers had big hearts, right? They thought they were helping.
I guess
too. I don't really know too many people.
I don't think you know too many people who have thanked you for an F either.
One so far.
You did it.
Hey,
Attest to that NC grade.
what's that?
I can attest for that NC grade. It really just does not count. I had a 3.9 GPA. After last semester, because of the situation at home, I also had to take care of my mother, so I couldn't take most of my classes. I had one class I was able to attend every day, and I got an A in there.
Me too.
I got 2 Fs, a WU, and a C. I turned the C into a credit, which made it an A.
Right.
The
Right.
F, the NCs, and didn't count.
Right.
If the Fs were there, I would have had a 2.1 GPA, but because of the NCs, I'm at a 3.
Right.
Wait a second. So what? You can't. Wait a second. I mean, that's not satisfying, is it?
No, it's not, but
Like the Fs turned into NCs, so that didn't affect the grade point. So it was just the C.
the C turned the credit, the CR grade,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
counted
CR.
as an A.
I see.
But it's the WUs that completely mess you up because it's kind of like the professors saying, I guess you never showed up. And
WU felt like a stab to the back because I had emailed all my professors. I told them what happened, and everybody said, yeah, make up the work. By the time I attended class again, I was late on all my midterms, and everybody was talking finals. So I was
It was
only
a disaster area. It really was.
I was
So-
only able.
But John,
mid-
so can I make sure I understand?
Go
So
for it.
I understand that the WU has brought down your average. The NCs did not. And
No.
what's CR again?
CR is just credit for the class. It
So
gets
that-
counted as an A.
It becomes an A.
It becomes an A. So the only thing that affected your grade point was the WU. Am I correct about
Yes.
that?
Yeah, because if I would have been able to turn that into
You have to fix it.
an
You have to
NC,
do what Marissa's doing and fill out.
appeal. It's
Yeah, I got-
annoying, but I think it is gonna work.
Listen, they're really going to be very open to those appeals once they get the hang of it because everyone knows it's wrong. And John, you're like an obvious A student, and you're going to probably want to continue your education, and you really got to make sure you take the average you've earned. Even though other schools are going to expect wiggle room in the next, say, year or two after COVID, you should still do it as a big of a drag as it is.
I know.
You know, and you know, like you guys are all so smart, and there's something about front row people that they're willing to work harder because they already have the intellect, they already see the power of that extra effort. It's such a drag, you know, it's not, but, you know, as a guy who kept switching schools, those grade points, it's shallow, but it just matters a lot.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Andy.
I see how those help. In a way, if someone got, let's say, Bs, for instance, you can easily convert that B to an A. But on the other side of the fence, let's say when you have to move to a higher setting outside of BMCC, they're going to look at it, and it's kind of like having an asterisk. So it's a great area where, do I let them see that I did get a B during this time period? Or when they see the asterisk, they're going to wonder, was that a D or was it an
What
D?
do you mean
No,
by the asterisk? If a B turns
it's
into
not an
A,
asterisk, but having a credit only kind of sends the wrong message to a recruiter in another school. Like it, you know, even though I may have earned a B, but in order to turn that B to an A, I just took it as a credit with no grade.
no, I honestly think that your transcripts are all going to have dates. And I honestly believe schools are going to read into that.
They're going to read into that.
They are going to read into that. Listen, I got to tell you something.
But that's not a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. If
No,
they have to
they'll
read
read into the fact that this was COVID related. They're not going to see it as like a GED, you know, where people see someone got a GED, they may say, oh, that's not as good until you get a college degree. Then they don't care.
Well, it's kind of like a professor giving a WU. Like, I'm not going to give you the benefit. On the other side, you might have an administrative director looking at it like, all right, you got no grade. Does that mean you got a B or does that mean you got a D? And that, again, gives power to the other person to decide whether or not you qualify.
So, Andy, I got to say something to you about it. First off, just to be fair, I'm so interested in what you're all saying, but I'm obviously not the authority because I've never done any of this since I'm not an administrator. So I don't know directly what goes on when transcripts get reviewed, for example, but I know a little. Yes, John.
I work in student affairs as well.
Oh, great.
Look at him.
What Andy said is correct. It is up to the senior college to decide how they're going to view your grade.
Mhm.
That asterisk is going to say due to the COVID pandemic. But
This guy didn't work hard enough.
you also have to remember that it's also going to be SUNY and CUNY schools.
Right.
This is going to be nothing Harvard.
Don't be so sure.
Any
Listen.
colleges like that, they're really not going to take it at, they're not going to look into it as hard. They're not going to take it at face value. They're going to look and see what happened. So
Yeah, I'm going to say something, though, just in general about transcripts and complicated transcripts. Schools do look hard, but sometimes you got to lean on them. You know, my daughter went to school out of the country for a year, right? And that one country has a system so foreign that the grades are incomprehensible. She and I, and I've been teaching for a long time. It took us so long to even begin to translate what they meant, right? And she is going to Hunter in the fall. So same system through CUNY. And I literally had to call CUNY and say, how's it going with that transcript? And it took about a month of badgering for it to actually work, but it did work. They actually did figure out all the strange translations. So look, guys, all we can say is this: we don't know the specific truth about how the post-COVID academic world is going to look at all this. One thing I will say, though, is we all lived through it. Everybody knows how bizarre this was. I knew I recognized Marissa, and I got to tell you, Marissa, even though I'm not good with faces, as now I seem better because you all have names on Zoom. But I was like, oh, this is an alpha student. I looked at your face, I was like, I know her from somewhere. This is somebody who would drive. And I wasn't sure, right? There was never a moment where I thought, oh, yeah, she's one of the ones who bailed out. That never crossed my mind. It didn't. In last semester, if you want to know, I had 50 students at the beginning of the semester. I think I might have had them 20 by the end. There's two different classes, So I would say roughly 25 each or something like that. It went down roughly half. And, the school had to respond to that. And we still don't know how this is going to affect us going forward. I get emails every couple days saying, no decision's been made about the fall semester. We recommend that professors are prepared to teach online because it's going one way or the other. You know what I mean? Be prepared for both eventualities, the room. I really don't know what I prefer now that I've tried both. I really don't. I know one advantage in the classroom is if they're going to do it in the classroom, I really think they're going to have to reduce the number of seats. They can't have us sitting next to each other. So those teachers are going to have it easier in that way. They'll get to really know their students, like our little core group here. I really hope that people on YouTube are enjoying the class. And to be honest with you, even if I was going to do a class just like this and offer it to 1,000 people that I'm never going to meet, I think the class would be more fun if there were at least 10 people live, because we have an exchange and it makes the whole thing human rather than just seeing someone just delivering information, making jokes. Yes, Lorenzo.
And talking about transcripts, about how hard it was, coming from having done all school in Europe, especially in Italy, I had to get them translated by a judge. So then the judge translated them and signed them off. Then they came over here, but they couldn't understand them because the judge did some sort of mistake. So then they didn't know how to read them. So sometimes, even now, I still get some emails saying, we don't have your transcripts. Why are you in this school?
Oh my God.
This
is New York too. Like everybody's from somewhere else. You'd think we'd be the master location for international events, but like it's, in front of you, my daughter went to school in Scotland, right? They speak English in Scotland. Hard to understand, but English. But the transcripts were just so foreign. I had no idea what any of it meant. And so it's complicated. It really is. Listen, guys, I want to say, like, though John has worked in a department that gives him some insight, I have not. So I'm literally all front lines. I directed a department briefly years ago. Obviously didn't like it. So I just want to say, guys, be stubborn, but be graceful. Because sometimes, here's something I want to tell you. This is real personal advice about getting the job done when dealing with major institutions. As soon as you find someone who cares anywhere along the line, who uses their name and obviously cares, maybe they responded to your email immediately or your phone call same day, keep them as a contact and be ultra graceful. You thank them every step of the way because they're human and they want to be appreciated. And when they're picking out of the stack on their desk like this, they were like, oh, this person here was like, appreciated what I'm doing rather than mouthed off at me because they're so mad at life. You know, I found someone at Hunter like that, and the guy was just human. And he was like, what's up with the transcript problem? And even though he was just at Hunter, he called CUNY, the mothership, and they fought it out, and this just went on and on and on. And in the end, actually, we won. I think. I mean, she's in. I don't know about the transfer credits. That's the next part of the battle. See if there are any of those. I don't know. Anybody else have any other comments, questions, statements, or anything?
No.
So folks, let me tell you, tomorrow, really we have one little inserted project, probably on Monday, that's a different technology. P5, which I've been mentioning. But really, the majority of the rest of the semester is animation. I want to get us to my favorite type, which I see is the most useful. It's a little challenging, but I've never had anyone fail the final project who did it. In fact, I don't think I ever had anyone who got under a 75 or 80 who didn't, just throw in the towel for other reasons. But I've gotten a lot of A's, and it's fun. So we're going to be spending this tail end of the semester almost exclusively on animation with a small detour to programming. So anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. We're doing more animation, more Adobe Animate. And it's been a pleasure, guys. It's fun hanging out with you guys a little after class.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Yeah, you too. See you, everybody.
Professor.
See you. Alyana, John, everybody. Too many people for me to list. Bye, guys. Where's my little button today?